What's up, dudes? Max here, back with a video I know a lot of you guys have been requesting, and it's an update in terms of the Dragon Ball beta. It happened a while ago, but I never really had my chance to go over the experience, what I thought of it, the netcode, the gameplay, the lobbies, everything like that, simply due to the fact that there's still a ton of fighting game stuff happening. Marvel Infinite just came out. But now, here's a pretty good chance for me to talk about Dragon Ball FighterZ, the beta. So let's just go over everything bit by bit, and I'll give you my impressions, what I'm happy with, what I'm concerned about, what I hope changes, and what was really good. First and foremost, the most important thing in Dragon Ball FighterZ, the netcode. For anyone that's familiar with Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator 2 or the Guilty Gear Xrd series, Dragon Ball FighterZ essentially handles its netplay very similar to those games. It's a delay-based netcode that gives you a frame counter at the top that actively tells you what your connection status is and how much of a delay there is. This is kind of a good thing because Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2 especially, which is the last game they did that had this kind of netplay, ran really good online, and even with connections across seas, it is actually fairly good if you have people that have good connections. But the problem is with delay-based netcode, if someone's connection is not up to snuff, you really feel it, like very much so in terms of frame delay, where controlling your characters becomes something that is more of a guessing game because there's so much input delay between you and them. For the time I had with Dragon Ball FighterZ, I was getting a lot of connections that were not in my region. They were people that were across the world in several different areas that I ended up finding out about, and many of my connections in the very first portions of the Dragon Ball beta were not great. Doing things like responding to dash-ins with down heavies or making anything reactionary became very difficult, and most of my experience with the beta was kind of being hampered because so many of my connections were with people that had poor connections. But I was able to take some resources on my end, do what I could to try to make it that I get better connections through using a NetDuma router, and lo and behold, I was finding that when I was getting people that were actually in the US from the East Coast to the West Coast, it was running really good. I even had an experience where I ran into someone in Germany, and I later found out that this person said we had a 5-frame delay connection, which is actually fairly decent with 5 frames. And the distance between me and that person was huge, from Southern California to Germany, and the fact that our game actually ran good does mean very good things for the netplay of the game, that if you both do have good connections, there can be some crazy support in terms of the distance between the players. So I'm pretty hopeful on that end. The game just needs operational matchmaking at that point because, man, when I was playing, there was no parameters. It was just throwing me with people that had really poor connections. It was kind of hampering my experience until I did something on my end, and it got a lot better. However, the thing I'll definitely tell you is that when I was running into people that did have poor connections, sometimes the frame delay was absolutely not true. Sometimes it was saying that it was between 3 and 5 frames, when it definitely felt like it was over 8 to 10 frames in some situations, and even others when it would max out at approximately 17 to 18 frame delay, it didn't even feel that bad. It felt like it was something around 5 to 6. So the frame counter that actually tells you how good the connection is a little iffy right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if that gets fixed. Again, this was on the PlayStation 4 version. The Xbox version was running through a huge amount of problems, and I'm honestly not too surprised about that because these games and their netplay have never been on Xbox before. Between like all the Guilty Gear series that use this specific type of netcode, they have never actually been on Xbox, and their lobby systems have never been on that thing either. So the beta test being the first time they're testing out the lobby system and their matchmaking just led to nothing but problems, and a huge amount of Xbox users were running into a ton of issues trying to match up with people, if not just play online. My condolences for you guys. That really sucks because they did not extend the beta for Xbox. Hopefully when the open beta comes, it'll work a lot better for you dudes, but all these impressions are from the PlayStation 4 version. Now, the next biggest part that you'll all immediately recognize is the lobby system and how the lobby system essentially works. This is definitely a very cute and nice aspect to the game, although it is almost identical to what they do in Guilty Gear Xrd Rev 2 or Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator. You have these little arcade stations you can go to, and you can like match up with people and they can sit down. The biggest problem is that this stuff does not work all the time. There's a matching ring in the middle where all the players kind of hurdle towards and try to just eventually match up with each other, where the matchmaking takes place. but in several situations where I would be in lobbies with people where it's just me and 1 or 2 people searching for a game, it would not pair us up against each other, and we would have to try to like refresh the thing several times to make it work. The good thing is that this is a beta, this is going to get a lot better, but the thing I'm worried about is that this was also an issue with the final releases of Rev and Rev 2 for Guilty Gear, and even if you have a lot of people in those arcade lobbies, like a full packed room, it starts acting a little weird, matches don't start happening, and you eventually have to work yourself into a player match with less people in the room to make it properly function. So I am hopeful that changes, because I do like the aspect that you can just jump into an arena in the middle. What I'm not a fan of is the constant loading and reloading of the lobby. Let's hope that there's a proper ranking system that takes you out of the lobby scenario that allows you just to get back into a match as soon as possible, prevent the loading of the lobby, prevent the loading of the character select screen, just make it a really quick rematch or search for new match. That would be awesome, and it's something that's being implemented into more and more fighting games now, so let's hope that eventually does change. Now, the last thing that I really wanted to talk about is the gameplay, because once you started getting good games, the gameplay was absolutely awesome. Having yourself play Dragon Ball with low latency between like 2 to 4 frames, even if you're playing with people on like the way East Coast compared to my way West Coast, did feel absolutely awesome when it did work. So I'm very hopeful that the net play for Dragon Ball is actually going to be great when it does come out. It does suffer from several things that non-rollback netcode kind of does suffer from. So let's hope that that does get ironed out, but I would overall give the net play experience somewhere between like a 7 to an 8 when I was playing it online during the betas. The game is incredibly fun, and to me personally, when I was playing Dragon Ball at different events and playing it at the Bandai Namco offices, I wasn't playing a whole bunch of people because I was trying to get footage of characters and what they can do and combos and breakdowns. So my matches directly with opponents, like human opponents, wasn't very much in those situations, and the opportunity I had to play the most human people in Dragon Ball FighterZ was actually during these betas. And I'll tell you, my initial review of the gameplay, while I do love it, like, the presentation of Dragon Ball is honestly the best of any fighting game out there, and the presentation really does complement the gameplay to make you feel like you're doing awesome things, and it's really fun and over the top and abrasive and kicks everything up to 11. It's everything I love about fighting games, but when I started boiling down the raw playtime I had, I was like, I'm thinking this game is probably like a 7 out of 10 gameplay-wise, where I feel that there's a lot there, I just can't find it right now, and it's feeling a little dry because I'm kind of playing every character the same. However, I will say at the end of the beta, when I was actually playing with people and learning the crazy stuff and integrating assists and having more control over situations with proper net play and just the amount of crazy ballistic bullshit that happens in Dragon Ball FighterZ is extremely fun. And really, I'm gonna say, like, my gameplay overall rating of Dragon Ball FighterZ after playing a whole bunch of people over that weekend, probably is gonna get bumped up to a 9 out of 10. At the end of it, I was having so much fun that I was like, man, I am gonna miss this game, and I'm just lucky that a game like Marvel Infinite is here to satiate me until, like, Dragon Ball FighterZ comes out, because, man, I would be feeling very lost right now if I didn't have another Versus game that's, like, equally as crazy and really damn fun as Marvel Infinite. Dragon Ball FighterZ is, like, the wonderful complement to all these Versus games that I love, and dude, it was awesome. Like, I cannot wait for that open beta to be a thing. It's probably going to happen at the earliest of, like, 2018, maybe the end of 2017. And by the time the beta was over, like, matching up with people and playing them, I realized that, dude, this game is going to be awesome at the early part of 2018, and I can't wait for what else they're going to show in this game. I can't wait to play the characters. And one of the most fun aspects was that I was playing almost all the characters, except mostly Krillin. I'm still tough on Krillin right now. I have matches with, like, all 10 characters in the game outside of Krillin, and I was loving it, dude. I was loving roaming the roster. So there's an aspect that I do like about switching amongst the roster, because they are not too difficult. Like, figuring out their moves isn't hard because they mostly just have, like, 2 specials and 2 supers. but finding the nuanced things between them, which is very similar to a game like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, is what the game is all about, and the depth and the creativity and all that stuff will come later, because by the third or fourth session, that was really starting to ignite a spark in my head in terms of what I can do with the teams I was playing, and that's where the game kind of bumped up to a 9 out of 10 in my book in terms of gameplay. I am so looking forward to this game. I can't wait for more. I'll be back to update you guys as soon as possible, and I have a ridiculous amount of match footage of some really good matches I had during the beta, of using nearly, like I said, the entire roster, so I'll be putting up those matches in probably 4K quality to make it look as good as possible, but that's my impressions of Dragon Ball FighterZ beta as of right now. Thank you dudes a ton for watching. I'll be back with more updates to Dragon Ball FighterZ as soon as possible. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.